if we do a profile, like we have Kevin standing sideways, or Rick, we could do a full body shot. We could do a 3D print of Rick.
And it's not going to cost much at all.
Our cardboard budget, we could actually probably unroll a paper towel tube and just do the life size cut out of Rick.
Bounty, I hope, man. This is the Midwest. You got to have the flannel and Paul Bunyan, baby.
That's right. That's right.
2X is Midwest medium.
He's always telling me that. We do all these events, and Kevin's like, you got to make man-sized shirts. And I'm like, we make up to 2X. And Kevin's like, that's a Midwest medium. Yeah, we gotta make bigger shirts.
That's an East Coast small, man.
Yeah.
Kevin, are you sitting in an outhouse right now? Where are you right now?
I'm in my smoking shed.
You got a banjo off camera to your left or anything, or?
I got the chief here with me.
Okay.
I told him. The other day, the angle was literally, it must have been at his feet. And I'm like, I feel like you're standing above me after murdering me in a parking garage right now. The angle was so fucking bad. I was like, we have to bring this up. I feel like I've been primed.
All right. Let's get started because we're already off the track.
It's going to be a frantic hour, ladies and gentlemen, to Cigars From Afar.
Yeah. All right, guys. So what's going on? This is Rick and Cole from Tobacco Grove coming to you with Cigars From Afar. Special guest today, we have got the Kristoff guys. We have got Kevin and Jarrid, the one and the only, here with us today. How you guys doing?
Good, man. What's going on?
Doing great, thanks.
See, this is right now we're doing the BS. Hey, what's going on? We've already done all this, so let's just screw it. I already know it. Kevin's sitting in an outhouse right now. Jarrid's in mourning because of what happened to the Patriots. So, I mean, we get it. We understand.
All right.
Now, seriously, how many computers did you Gronk smash in the last 24 hours? I want to know that.
Everybody, you know what it is? I've spent the better part of a decade and a half drinking everyone's tears. Everybody I know, just drinking their tears, just whatever. And so now people think it's funny to text me and antagonize me about all this stuff. And the fact of the matter is, it's gonna get better. It will get better. This is one of those YouTube PSAs where it's it gets better. It is gonna get better.
How is it gonna get better? You've had one of the greatest dynasties in the NFL history. You are, dude. This is coming from a Cleveland Browns fan. Let me tell you what darkness is all about. Okay, you're gonna learn.
It's not, but there will be no dark times. We will have rebuilding year. We will draft a quarterback, or maybe this Jarrett Stidham guy who's been studying behind Brady for a little while. Maybe he turns out to be something. Who knows? And then things will be good. It's Belichick is the franchise. It wasn't Brady. It's not Gronkowski. Belichick is the franchise, and it's next man up. And we will now is when you figure out you separate the men from the boys, right? If Brady and Gronk go down to Tampa Bay and turn that chicken shit into chicken salad, it could be something. It could be something, right? I don't know what's going to happen. I'm a Tom Brady fan for all of the dancing on graves he's allowed me to do over the past decade.
Rick.
So I'm a Tom Brady fan. So I will support Tom Brady no matter where he is. I don't see him as some Benedict Arnold. And if you don't think at the end of his career he's going to sign a one-day contract with the Patriots and retire a Patriot, you're outside your mind. So all these people that are like, I thought he would die a Patriot, you're an idiot. He's got to get paid. Go get paid. I don't stand between anybody and getting paid. Go get paid and see if you can do it on your own. Do whatever ego thing you got to do over there. At the very least, it's warm and the taxes are lower. That's what I did. I moved from Boston to Texas. So it's for the exact reason, because it's warm and the taxes are low. So
you got a 50% raise.
He did that because he didn't want to root for the Cowboys. That's why.
No, because I wanted to come out here and antagonize the most passionate fan base in the NFL.
You have to remind them from a Vikings fan. I want you to remind them that the Patriots, it has Patriot in the name, that is America's team and not Dallas.
100%. I don't know. Boston, we invented America. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that, but it's pretty important city. And I
thought that was Virginia.
No, that's a rumor. That's a foul rumor.
Well, I appreciate how you're taking this with a grain of salt. I mean, you listen, and you admitted it. You guys have drank the tears of all other 31 NFL teams for decades now. So, you know what? I appreciate it.
Fair.
Yeah, good night, Canada.
And also, when I was watching, and obviously I want to be in the game, but I literally have cigar lounges in Dallas that anytime the Patriots are in a Super Bowl, they are like, Jarrid, you have to do an event, whatever it costs. We want you to do an event. And I'm like, why? And they're like, I'm like, I'm not fucking doing an event. I don't want to watch you. I don't want to talk to your people. I want to watch the game because I live and die by it. My office, when I had a real job, my office was in Patriot Place, in Foxborough. Oh. And so I'm like a diehard Patriot fan and New England sports fan. So it's like I can't do an event. I can't ask if somebody comes up to me and it's like, oh, what's the blend on this? I'll be like, yeah, I eat shit. Yeah, I'm watching the Patriots. I know you're not familiar with being invested in a game, but I'm a Patriot fan, so I am.
Listen, I appreciate that. I appreciate that because I'm the same way. If Ohio State is playing, I cannot do anything else. That's it. I have to watch it. No. And honestly, I don't want to be around anybody else. I want to be.
No, because I die. Yes. I die a slow public death.
Yes.
And that's why they want me to do the event.
Yes.
Because they want to see me. They want to see me sitting 2 inches from the TV screaming. That's what they want.
Yeah. They want to see the breakdown. They want to see the
breakdown.
Yeah.
Jarrid, I got to tell you, man, the funniest thing was, so the first time Rick went to a Vikings football game, right, in Minnesota, I got tickets from a customer of ours. He had seats, and we sat in the end zone. And I'm like, Rick, we're gonna go to a game. He's like, hell yeah. They were playing the Patriots. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Rick's a big Ohio State guy, and he hates anybody from Michigan that played Michigan football.
We don't say that word. We don't say the M word.
All right, the place east of Wisconsin, he doesn't like those people except for the Ubers. We had people in row 3 ahead of us in the end zone, all Tom Brady Patriots jersey. About 104 yards on the other end of the adjacent end zone, on about the 1 yard line. The Patriots are driving to eventually score on the Vikings, and Rick is standing right next to me, and he's screaming his lungs out, Brady, you suck! And like 4 of these guys turn around and look, and I go, Rick, he can't even hear you. I can't even hardly hear you myself. He's like, I don't care. I just want him to know that I think that he sucks. And the guys in the Patriots turn around and are like,
Kevin, do you have any passion towards any football teams at all? And maybe it's not
even. It was great.
Well, okay, you're a Cleveland Browns fan, and Paul, you're a Vikings fan. Mm-hmm. You will understand my death. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan.
Yeah, but I can't circle the wagon. I can't circle the wagon. What are you talking about? The only people in recorded history that can circle the wagon, this is public fact, nobody circles the wagon like the Buffalo Bills. That is the only team that's allowed to do it. The only team that
might be the best fan base in the NFL, the most passionate fan base in the NFL. The table-breaking videos, just the fact that they are just unredemptive, unapologetic savages that just – they aren't there. How could you possibly be there to watch football? Because the Buffalo Bills are going to end up playing. So it's like you have to be there to just smash tables and spray ketchup and mustard on people and stuff like that. That's what they do.
You know what I feel sorry for? I feel sorry for the people that tuned into this to learn about Kristoff Cigars and all we've done about the history of the NFL's most passionate fan bases. For now 16
well, I like how Jarrid has the hat on. He looks like he's from from ESPN, like he's the Boston reporter, the guy from with the headphones on.
You know what? Listen, this breaks.
Tell me about Nomar Garcia-Parra. Is he still around?
Yeah.
I love Nomar.
Nomar. You gotta love
Nomar.
So Jarrid, let's talk a little bit about Kristoff Cigar. That's what we're here to do. We want to learn a little bit more and hopefully have the people that are watching learn a little bit more about Kristoff and Kevin for you as well. So first of all, I'd love to learn a little bit about how you guys got into the industry to begin with. How did you start up in the industry? Kevin, you want to start off with that?
Yeah, I was a regular customer of another TAA account in my home market at the time, and went on a factory tour with them. And one evening was having a talk with one of the owners of the shop, and she says, you come in after work all the time. You don't even like your job. You should find something else to do. So we're having rum and cigars, and the conversation goes on. And next thing I know, she calls me one night, and I'm at home, and she's like, hey, we're having a Kristoff event at the store. And in my mind, I'm saying, no shit, I'm on your email list. And she's like, well, Glenn is here. And I'm like, who's Glenn? It's like, well, he's the owner. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she, in essence, put in a word for me. And next thing I know, Jarrid is calling me, and I'm at lunch with my current coworkers, answering his questions like an asshole. You know, everything he asked me is yes and no, even when that's not the appropriate answer.
It was the stupidest interview I ever did. It was like I called him and I'm like, "Is this Kevin?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "This is Jarrid from Kristoff. How are you?" And he was like, "Oh, good." And I was like, "So that job that you seem to be really interested in, like, are you still interested in it?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Am I fucking bothering you right now or something? What is your problem? I'm trying to give you a job that you said was like your dream job." And he's like, and I'm like, "Is there a better time or something I could call you?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he was just saying like yes to everything I was saying. And I was like, "Okay, just call me later. I'm in the car." And so he called me later. He was like, "Dude, I'm so sorry. I was sitting and having lunch with my coworkers and I couldn't like do an interview while I was sitting with them." But I was sitting there and I'm like, "This guy, who recommended this guy?" Like Glenn, I'm like, Glenn gave me his information, was like, "You got to call this guy. He seems pretty good." And I'm like, "Glenn, like, don't give me people like this." Like, and then Kevin turned out to be a rock star, man. He's one of our top performing sales reps. Yeah. So.
And Jarrid, you have a really unique background before cigars, which I didn't know about until after I met you and learned a little bit about it, but which I think is actually a great transition, specifically when able to talk with retailers about their stores. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about that.
So I was when I had a real job before I was in the cigar industry, I was an executive for Target. And I also eventually got headhunted, went to Bed Bath & Beyond, managed a concept for them called Christmas Tree Shops and that. So that's also owned by Bed Bath & Beyond. We owned Bed Bath, Christmas Tree Shops and that, Bye Bye Baby, Harmon, all kinds of different concepts. And so I managed one of those concepts for them for about a year before I decided to get into the cigar business. So I really didn't think that my experience was going to transition at all. But at the end of the day, the brick and mortar retailers like Tobacco Grove and all the other ones that we call on, they are retailers. And turns out there are a lot of things that you can pick up from being in big box Fortune 500 retail to zooming it into the small brick and mortar tobacco shop, that you can learn a lot of lessons and a lot of habits and stuff like that. So it did end up allowing me to be a lot more helpful to the retailers and communicate to them in the way that I used to like to be communicated with, because I was on the buying side of the business and the merchandising side of the business. So I'm used to having, instead of, Jarrid idiot from Kristoff, it would be, Red Bull or Procter and Gamble or something coming to me for POs and merchandising direction and stuff like that. So instead of a $1,000 order, it was a, it's $12 million order or something like that. So, and how do you sell this across a 1,500 store chain? You know what I mean?
Right.
And do, $15-18 billion in sales. So it was a much different kind of P&L to manage versus what I do now or what brick and mortar retailers. But the core lessons of what I hated when sales reps from or sales managers from other companies called on me and said the same shit. Like I remember I was in a store in South Bay, Boston, which is the big one. And if you remember, after the Boston Marathon bombing, they were using a Target parking lot for the staging area. This was that was the store. And I was on a conference call when it was happening in the city.
Wow. And
so we were like all caught in the city and couldn't get out. And like our store had to be converted into like a weird hospital-y thing. And it was crazy. So anyways, that store, that South Bay store, it was a $120 million store. Just that one building, $120 million in sales. Absolutely wild volume. It had a jail in it. It had police. It had 2 police because that much shoplifting happened. And
sure.
Yeah, so we had police detail. It was an enormous store. And I remember it had like 60 registers in the front of the store. And I remember, and so that's 30 register end caps.
Oh yeah.
And so I remember I had this VP of Red Bull and he had this harem of people with him. And he was looking at me and he was like, "You should have Red Bull on every other register end cap and blah, blah, blah." And I said, "You should, and again, I'm a young guy. And but then that was 8 years ago, 9 years ago, more than that.
Yeah.
And so I was still young then, but I looked much, much younger. And so I remember I was like, you, sir, need to walk outside and look up. And unless it says your fucking name on the front of my store, then you need to come back in and change your approach with me. Or you can explain to whoever your boss is why there's 500 carts of Red Bull expiring in the back rooms of every Target store in my 64 store group. So you can explain that. And he was like, can we talk for a second? And I was like, yeah, I think we can. And so he pulled me. But I remember to this day how much I hated that approach of when a salesperson would come in and tell me what I should do with their product. And it's like, wait a minute. If the way that I see brick and mortar retail and cigar companies or sales or whoever sells to them, wholesales, it's like bacon and eggs, right? Mm-hmm. We're the chicken. We get to keep shitting out eggs, but you're the pig.
Right.
You got to die to make that bacon, right? And so that's the difference, right? Like I can call on you and then I call on the guy next door and I call everybody around you. You've got to sacrifice yourself. This is all you got, right? So if you manage the relationship like bacon and eggs and remember where you are as a salesperson, you can really add value for the account because you remember and you always have in focus who the asset is. You know what I mean? So that's the kind of perspective.
You're right on there, especially, you know, as a retailer. The first thing that drives me nuts as a retailer, when you hear retailers basically act like they've got it all figured out. You got it all figured out. I've got it all dialed in. I don't need to learn anything else. And it's like bullshit. There's so much learning to be happening all the time. Doesn't matter what type of volume your store is at. You can always be better, right? And the second thing is you're absolutely right about the notion of, you know, and we see this from time to time with companies. They want to come in and they just want to sell you. And you're like, oh, I don't need you to sell me. I need you to partner with me. I need you to sit down. I need you to talk to me about how you're a fit for us, what we can do then to help you and help both of us grow. At the end of the day, that's what we both want, is to grow sales numbers, right? You know, and provide a good experience. So, 100%.
and we're running to effectively, the way that it works is like in that humidor, we're running those little 16 facings. That's a little store inside of your store.
Yeah, it's
you know
basically
what I mean?
a small Target.
100%. So how do I make my store inside of your store as successful as possible? And it's by doing stuff like this. It's by doing events. It's by giving you good margin. It's by doing staff trainings. There's a million different things. But the answer is not coming in and saying, you got to buy this, this, and this. These are our best sellers. Well, the goal is, you know, you guys buy it once, then you got to sell it. And I wrote an article about a month ago for PCA, the Premium Cigar Association magazine, and it was called, you know, Argue with Your Accountant, and how inventory isn't an asset until it stops being inventory. You know what I mean? Right. And you know, while your accountant may say, you know, oh, that's a receivable, that's an asset on your balance sheet, it really isn't. It's a liability. Right. And if you come in and a sales rep comes in and you let them sell you, and you buy a 5-in-1 on a SKU that you turn one box every 3 months, well, that's a 15-month turn to recoup your investment and make that extra margin. That's not a good deal. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if you do that 1 or 2 times, it's not a big deal. But if you're placing 100 orders a year and you do that 20% of the time, that margin is deteriorated. And now 20% of the product in your humidor is not turning.
Or you might have to eat it. Yeah.
Or you might, 100%.
You had a whole lot for looking at for 2 years later. You know, you just
100%.
Get rid of it, you know.
And you guys know, you walk into that humidor every day and you look at the same box. Yep, still haven't sold fucking one of those. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you have the cigar that you hate the most in that humidor, and you look at it every day. It's an apartment
building. The humidor is an apartment building, and every single one of those boxes is a tenant. And if it's not paying its rent every month on time, you know, you got to put another tenant in there. You know, that's really the way it goes. So
it's not just doing us any favors either.
No,
by keeping that in the humidor. You know what I mean? No. It's not doing us any favors at all. It'd be much better for me to say, if you say, oh, these couple facings aren't selling, and then I say something like, oh, well, maybe we can do an event, or maybe we can do a 4-in-1 on it, or something like that, versus saying, well, who smokes cigars similar to this in your lounge? Are they here right now? How do we access them? Can I put it in their locker? Can I get them on the SKU? So it's all about the way that you look at the situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit, Kevin, if you want to start in on this, maybe Jarrid, you could go with it too, but talk to us a little bit about just Kristoff, the company. How did it start off? Talking about Glenn, et cetera. Tell the viewers a little bit about it.
Well, Glenn used to work in the banking industry and really got fed up with the bureaucratic nonsense that he was dealing with every day, to the point that it drove him to not want to do it anymore. And his now wife's family had been brokering cigars for almost any major brand you could name. They had probably worked for them at one time and helped build their market in the Midwest and Chicago area.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
And the way that it worked back then was, Rocky Patel, Drew Estates, Fuente, all these big companies, they used independent sales reps that sold 4 or 5 different manufacturers at the same time. It was before you had a Kristoff guy come to the store, or you had a Drew Estates guy come to the store.
Yeah, like brokers.
So yeah, brokers.
Yeah.
So they would go in and they would take a line like, say, Oliva, and they go and they sell a bunch of Oliva, and Oliva would say, "Hey, great job, Glenn. Great job, Terry." That's his wife. You're up 30%, and congratulations, you're fired, because we can afford to hire an in-house sales rep. And so Glenn kept working himself out of a job over and over again by doing a good job. And eventually he was like, screw this, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to do my own thing. So when we started in 2004, it was, we were literally had a dot matrix printer in the basement of Glenn's house, and we were putting bundle labels onto bundles and shipping it out of his garage. And then it evolved to where we had cubicles in the basement. So you go to work, and like Glenn and his wife would be sitting at the kitchen table having breakfast and coffee, and you'd be like, "Oh, hi," and then you go downstairs to your cubicle and make phone calls and do what you wanted to do. And now those were pretty crazy days. And then now, we sell millions of cigars a year in 33 countries. We've got a real office that isn't in Glenn's house. So the company's changed quite a bit.
Carrie is such a sweetheart too.
She's amazing.
So nice. And that was one of the things I found interesting as I learned a little bit more about, Glenn, and is that she was very involved. You don't really see that often. She's very involved.
She was the only reason that Glenn is even in the premium cigar business. Mm-hmm. He used to smoke 1 cigar a year during a fishing trip that he always did in like Canada or somewhere up near you guys, maybe, I don't know, somewhere fucking cold. And so he smoked once. He really wasn't into it. So when he retired, his wife and her father were tobacco brokers, like Kevin said. So he was like, well, I'll help out in the family business. And that's the only way that he got into cigars. And then he saw an opportunity and jumped at it. So if she wasn't a broker at the time, he never would have been in the premium cigar business. It's not like it's something that he was like always thinking in the back of his head. He actually, originally, he wanted to open up a hot dog stand, because he always loved the Chicago hot dogs, and he wanted to open up a Chicago hot dog stand. And then his buddies were like, "Are you nuts? You're gonna stand outside in 90-degree weather trying to sell hot dogs for 12 hours a day?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's probably not for me." So we decided to help out in the family business. But I could be the VP of sales for a hot dog company right now.
You're taking a bite out of Nathan's.
yeah. Kevin would be wearing a paper hat, squirting mustard.
Jarrid, you said that you guys are in 33 countries. Now, that's a long process. I've got to imagine that's a long process. How does that start up? Because I've always been curious about, the American market. You always hear about how it's vastly different from the European market, et cetera. And, I'm curious because how was that transition for you guys as a company, in getting into other countries?
So it's a really deliberate process, right? Like and it kind of changes things on its head. Like here, we have sales reps that are out there calling on accounts, opening up new stores. Over there, it's a distributor. So you work with the distributor has sales reps, and they place the orders with the stores, and the distributor fulfills the orders. So instead of having 2,000 accounts like we do here in the United States, in Germany, we have 1. And they have all the accounts that they manage.
Yeah.
Right. So we're a step or 2 removed from the actual day-to-day management of the accounts. So you have to pursue those distributors and convince them that your cigar is a cigar worth carrying in their stores, or that their customers are going to buy it. So
Right.
there's a bunch of different layers. Also, the United States cigar market is bigger than all the other cigar markets in the world combined, for the most part, in terms of volume. So I could take those other 32 countries, and for volume wise, they don't add up to 15% of my overall P&L. You know what I mean? The vast majority of the business that we do is here in the United States. Just because, like, there are some areas that are unusual, like Aruba, for example. Our partner in Aruba, Linden Cigars. They, if you go to Aruba on vacation, there will be Cuban cigars in the humidor, and there will be Kristoff cigars in the humidor.
Wow.
We make a cigar exclusive to Aruba. It's amazing. He just loves Kristoff. And so he supports us a great deal over there. So I have buddies that go on vacation, and they're like, there's so much there's more Kristoff in Aruba than there is in Boston. And it's like, I don't know. You know, it's crazy. But it's a really wild take. Germany, another great partner for us. Canada, another great partner for us. But you have to go to these international tobacco trade shows, and you have to find some dude who's like, I'm the distributor importer for Singapore, and be like, how do we do business? And you know what I mean? And then you got to navigate that country's laws, their packaging requirements.
Sure. Yeah.
And then for your cigar to be competitive, you have to provide margin for the distributor. So they expect to make near Keystone or something like that. So if you go to a place like Canada, for example, well, cigars in Canada, there's 100% excise tax, and then there are like 70+% provincial taxes. So a Kristoff that's $8 at Tobacco Grove is $18 in Canada, in some places. So how do you make up for that? Well, there's some fuckery that you can do, and then there's also, you know, okay, I'll just sell you my cigars for a low wholesale price, and I'll make less margin, so that you can Keystone it, and now it's $12 and it's really competitive, and maybe make out on volume instead or something like that. But the margin is just severely compressed. Plus, you got to ship it overseas. You got to pay tax, duty, freight, shipping, all that stuff. There's a lot of things that take bites away at the apple, so there's not that much left for us. So it's something that we do for exposure. It's something that we do for volume. And it's something that we do to insulate in not necessarily a time like this, which is a worldwide crisis, but like when there are individual dips, like say there's S-chip passes, like it did here in the United States, and retailers go crazy or whatever, we can kind of diversify our sales portfolio so we still have bastions where we're doing volume and making money. So it was just a smart business play, and it's a lot of work. And our guy Ward in the office, he's our operations manager. He's my counterpart. I manage the sales infrastructure. He manages the operations. He's a rock star, and he does great with these international. Many of these guys, they don't speak English, and they don't. So he really has a lot of patience, which is not a trait that I possess in great quantity.